trying to arrange to see all of you as well as see the text. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay, good. So very good to see all of you again. Yeah, somebody here was hoping that I didn't scare you all away. So we'll pick up where we left off last time, but we'll start in the same way, visualizing the merit field and ourselves surrounded by sentient beings, and then leading them in, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. So take a moment and do the visualization.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger.
So take a few minutes, come home to your breath, and let the mind settle down. So let's unify our purpose of being here so that we all have the same motivation and are going in the same direction. And let's do this by generating bodhicitta, having the aspiration for full awakening, which means really paying attention to the teachings, thinking about them, applying them to our own lives, discussing them with others, and then putting them into practice. And this is all done for the ultimate purpose of liberating all living beings from samsara. Okay. So last time we talked about the benefits of relying on a spiritual mentor, yeah, and the different feelings that come when we translate the term as guru devotion versus relying on a spiritual mentor, establishing a healthy, beneficial relationship with a spiritual mentor. So today we're going to go on and talk about how to rely on a spiritual mentor, because part of the questions that you asked me to talk about is how might we best relate to our teachers while they are still alive? Okay, so we're still on that part of it. We'll get to the rest of the questions, yeah? But this part is quite important. Yeah. Okay, so we rely on them mentally, and we rely on them through our actions. And when we rely on them mentally, we want to cultivate a sense of trust in them and also a feeling of gratitude towards them. Now, usually they say that we cultivate faith by seeing their qualities. But as I explained last time, the word faith doesn't really encompass what the Buddhist word is. Yeah, because we assume faith is just, well, I believe, that's it. Doesn't necessitate any reason or anything else. I just believe. And that's not what we're getting at. Okay, we want to have a feeling. I was saying that what we translate as faith often, it does combine trust and confidence in another person. So it's not blind faith. Yeah. So, and I think the trust part is really important, because this is a person that we want to lead us to full awakening. So we better trust them, you know, that they have the correct understanding of emptiness, that they have our welfare in mind, that they're patient and compassionate, and they're not just going to throw us out the moment we make a big boo-boo. Yeah. So we need to have that kind of trust and confidence in their knowledge and their character. Yeah. Okay. And so we do that by looking at their qualities. Yeah. And so we went through the qualities last time of a really perfect Vinaya master and a Mahayana master. And it's difficult to find somebody with all of those, but at least somebody with some of the most important ones. Okay. And Okay, so there's some sutra passages talking about this. So here, the 10 Teaching Sutra. Oh, well, that's actually the next section. Okay, we'll read something that this is from the sutra. It's from the Array of Stock Sutra, which is the sutra that has the King of Prayers in it, that tells the story of the young man Sudana, who is looking for teachers to guide him to awakening, and he has 53 teachers, with each teacher passing, encouraging him to go on to the next one for the next step of his journey. So here he is, he's going to see Avalokiteshvara, who I don't think this means the deity Chenrezig, but a living being. And this is the way he is thinking, okay? Transported with joy on seeing Avalokiteshvara, his eyes fixed on him, his mind undistracted, full of energy of faith in the spiritual mentor, thinking of seeing spiritual mentors as at once seeing Buddhas, thinking of the reception of the multitudes of all truths as originating in spiritual mentors, thinking of the attainment of all virtues as deriving from spiritual mentors, thinking of how hard it is to meet spiritual mentors, thinking of spiritual mentors as the source from which the jewels of knowledge of the 10 powers are obtained, thinking of spiritual mentors as the source of vision of inexhaustible knowledge, thinking that the growth of the sprouts of goodness depends on spiritual mentors, thinking that the door of omniscience is revealed by spiritual mentors, thinking that the way to enter the ocean of great knowledge is pointed out by spiritual mentors, thinking that the accumulation of the store of omniscience is fostered by spiritual mentors. With that in his mind, Sudana approached Avalokiteshvara. Okay. So I didn't go through and explain each of the things, but you can go back and look in the book. And, it gives us some idea of the role that spiritual mentors play in our lives and how important they are. Okay. Okay, so then His Holiness goes on, by reflecting on our spiritual mentors' qualities, ethical conduct, kindness, meditative abilities, and so on, we will have a positive view of them. Our trust and inspiration will increase, and our minds will be receptive to their teachings. Yeah, this is not blind faith, because there are reasons to hold this person in high regard and to have confidence in his or her ability to guide us on the path. Yeah. If we see our spiritual mentors as just kind of, Joe Blow that we're hanging out with, then we're going to relate to the teachings as if Joe Blow were teaching us. Yeah. And how much effect the teachings have in our minds depend on how we listen. Yeah. So if we have the kind of mind that Sudana had, we're going to listen attentively and really practice. And who benefits from that? We do. Okay. However, if we don't use our capability for critical thinking to contemplate the reasonings proving emptiness, and instead employ it to analyze the faults of our spiritual mentor, we put ourselves in precarious position of possibly angrily cutting off the relationship with our mentor and abandoning Dharma practice. Okay, so like the BBC today was talking about, we have excellent abilities to criticize and judge other people. So, in fact, our ability to criticize and judge others is much better than our use of analysis to think of emptiness or bodhicitta or renunciation or something like that. So if we just take off with our usual way of seeing other people, comparing ourselves to them, picking out their faults, then we're damaging our own ability to gain the benefit from that relationship. Okay. We are the ones who suffer the most should this happen. The benefit or loss that accrues to us in our relationship with a spiritual mentor depends on which qualities we choose to focus. Okay. Having faith and respect for teachers sitting on high thrones whom we seldom see is easy. It is much more challenging to appreciate the teacher who gives us daily or weekly Dharma teachings and to whom we offer service. This is part I was mentioning last week. We tend to treat that mentor like an old friend and cease to appreciate his or her qualities and kindness. Because we may easily start to criticize his or her habits or stop listening to the advice, we must take special care in our relationships with the teachers that we see often to ensure that our attitude and behavior do not sabotage this most precious relationship. Okay, so since that's pretty clear, isn't it? Yeah. Since we learn by observing the example of others, reflecting on our teachers' positive qualities will inspire us to make effort to develop them ourselves. And I think that's one of the things for those of us who are the kind of first generation to come in contact with the Tibetan Lamas. That's what really got us going, is we met these people who were incredible. Yeah. And so you just saw how they acted, how they spoke to other people, and this feeling came, hey, I want to be like them. And so that the faith and the trust came about. That I have the hiccups. Came about that way. So if we have the opportunity to live near our teachers and help them with various projects, we will witness Dharma lived in daily life by observing how our teachers treat people and manage a variety. Sorry if I keep hiccuping. And managing a variety of situations judiciously and compassionately. Learning by observing a wise practitioner is a precious opportunity, one that cannot be gained by reading a book. Okay, so books are really beneficial. If somebody can bring me a glass, I know a technique to stop hiccuping, but I can't do it with a thermos. And especially with a thermos that was closed so tightly. This is the second time today I'm opening this thermos. I know I got it. Just took a little bit of effort. You wouldn't think somebody like her could close a thermos so hard. I'm sorry, could I have a cup instead of a glass? Yeah, it's easier to do with a wide. Any cup that doesn't have a leak in the bottom. And then if people, I'll include as part of the teaching, this is how you get rid of the method, infallible method for getting rid of hiccups when you're in the middle of giving a Dharma talk or any talk. You fill up the glass, you lean over, and then you try and drink water from the other side of the cup. Okay, so I'm going to bend down so you don't see me dribble it all over. but it always works. Okay, let's see if I did it. Mhm. Okay, just small embarrassing moments. Yeah, so if we see our teacher as somebody who just hiccups at all the wrong times, yeah, then that's the benefit we get, you know. Okay. So whether or not our teachers are highly realized, we benefit from seeing them in a positive light. If we think someone is an ordinary person, even if he or she teaches us a profound topic, we will not listen or take their words seriously. Okay, but if we think that an awakened being is teaching us, we will listen carefully and put the teachings into practice. In this way, trust and faith in our spiritual mentors supports us in our practice and uplifts us when we feel discouraged. So I think, you know, when they talk about, you know, here they mention seeing the person as an awakened being. This is a technique to help us focus on our teacher's good qualities. Okay. So as I said last time, it actually is necessary when we practice highest yoga tantra, but in the Tibetan tradition, it's, you know, filtered down to the lower stages. So it's not necessary in the lower stages, but what you want to do is make sure that you have a mind that has respect for your teacher. Yeah, because if there's no respect, then why are you sitting there listening to teachings? Yeah, if somebody's a jerk, are you going to go attend teachings? No. You know, if you think somebody's a jerk, or maybe not a total jerk, but half a jerk, and you know, and you go and listen, and the whole time your mind is going, that's wrong, and that's wrong, and look how they look, and you know, their socks fall down, and their shemdap's dirty, and you know, what do they know anyway? Then what kind of benefit are you going to get? Okay, and so that respect doesn't come from how many titles the teacher has or the kind of clothes that they wear. Yeah, one of my teachers, some of you may know him, Geshe Thubten. You know, when he was a meditator in the mountains, when he walked around Dharamsala, yeah, his socks were always falling down. His shemdap was uneven. It had dirt on it because he was coming down from the mountains, and he had whiskers sticking out. You would walk past him, you know, doing the circumambulations. Nobody would notice him, but he was an amazing teacher. Yeah, really amazing. But, you know, if you just took it on sight, you know, no brocade, no high throne. In fact, when he came to Italy, he took the cushion off the throne, put it on the floor, and then sat down to teach us. Okay, so yeah, don't rely on appearances and fantastic looking things. Okay, so one attitude we want to cultivate is trust. Yeah. And respect for the teacher. Another attitude is appreciation and an awareness for their kindness. So I'm using different translations of the words that you'll find in the text because the words I'm choosing just to me make more sense on a heartfelt level. Okay. Yeah, when you see somebody's kindness, to mean to me, that doesn't increase my respect. It increases my appreciation and my gratitude. So that's why I don't usually put respect there. I put respect with generating the trust. Yeah. Okay, so so there's been countless Buddhas who have appeared in the past. We didn't have the karma to meet them, but we do have the karma to meet a representative, and in the sense of our spiritual mentors. And so the 10 Teaching Sutra says, develop the following ideas with respect to your teachers. I have wandered for a long time through cyclic existence, and they search for me. I have been asleep, having been obscured by confusion for a long time, and they wake me up. I have entered a bad path, and they reveal the good path to me. They release me from being bound in the prison of samsara. They are the rain clouds that put out my blazing fire of attachment. Okay, so when we think of the kindness of our teachers for having that kind of effect on our mind and taking care of us in the sense of helping us overcome our afflictions, or at least subduing them a little bit, then there a lot of heartfelt gratitude comes in our heart, and appreciation for them and veneration. Okay, and this joyful attitude removes obstacles and facilitates our practice. And when we have a mind that just criticizes, and a mind that demands, I want my teacher to do this and I want them to do that, and I don't see them as being kind because they say no to me sometimes, and they don't give me what I want. Yeah, I want, detailed explanation of this passage. I want the teaching to start exactly at an early time so that I don't fall asleep. I don't want the teaching to start at 11 o'clock at night and go to 4 in the morning. Yeah. And they aren't doing that. They aren't giving me what I want. Yeah. And we get mad and we get irritated. So that just makes a mess in our mind. Okay. So then there's the section on seeing spiritual mentors as Buddhas. And here His Holiness begins by saying, a guru who is able to give all 4 empowerments of highest yoga tantra based on his or her own experience is definitely a Buddha. And seeing him or her as a Buddha is reasonable. Since gurus who give empowerments do not have, some gurus who give empowerments do not have that experience. But if we see them as Buddhas, it increases our concentration and enhances our meditative experience. Okay. And so he says, when we view our spiritual mentors as the Buddha, Buddhahood does not seem so distant, because there's a person that we consider having attained it. So it doesn't seem like, oh, it was only people in the past or whatever who can do it. We come to feel close to the Buddha, and we begin to think that awakening is possible and awakened beings actually exist. Yeah, because we see our teachers as an example of that. Although not all spiritual mentors are Buddhas, some of our mentors are ordinary beings. Our practice will progress well from maintaining a positive view of them. Okay. Okay, the teaching to see the spiritual mentor as a Buddha is borrowed from highest yoga tantra, and is often taught earlier on the path to prepare disciples to receive tantric empowerments. So if you read Pabonka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, there's a huge section in the beginning about relying on the spiritual mentor. And it's really intense, complete with, how many eons you're going to burn in hell if you don't see your guru as the Buddha, or if you disrespect or whatever. Pabonka Rinpoche, well, actually, he was writing, So Pabonka Rinpoche was preparing people who were going to take highest yoga tantra empowerment. He was not teaching a group of beginners. So that's one thing that's very important. It wasn't, that teaching was not directed at a bunch of beginners. Okay. However, this teaching is not appropriate for beginners because it is open to misunderstanding. Yeah, the fundamental vehicle and the perfection vehicle do not instruct us to view our teacher as a Buddha, although we may personally choose to do so. Okay. And then, the Tibetans themselves say that you don't bring the topic of seeing the spiritual mentor as a Buddha to the debate ground because it's very difficult to prove with logic. And then he gives an example. In debate, one monk asked another, some texts say that our spiritual mentors are Buddhas. Do you agree? The second monk replied affirmatively. Then the first monk asked, you have disciples here in the monastery. Are you also a Buddha? At which point the second monk was chagrined because he knew that he was not. Okay, so you don't put it on the debate ground and you don't have that kind of expectation. The Tibetans are much more practical about this. Somebody may have the title of Rinpoche, but the Tibetans watch how that person acts, how they speak, how they do their studies. Yeah, just because that person has the title of Rinpoche does not mean that all the Tibetans fall over them. However, it does mean that all the Ingis fall all over them. Okay, because we hear that title, Rinpoche. Oh, they're an incarnate. They must be highly realized, for sure they're a Buddha, and without even knowing the person, we just like, they're wonderful. Yeah, or we have our teacher, and we really respect our teacher, but then we go around telling everybody, my teacher is really a Buddha. Yeah, I was at one teaching one time in New York, and sitting near some other nuns from another Dharma center, and we were chatting, and they're going, our teacher's of Buddha. You should see when he teaches emptiness, tears come to his eyes. We know that he has high realizations. That teacher later wound up in a lot of hot water from a pretty intense scandal. Okay, but it's not really appropriate. If you have faith in somebody, you don't need to go broadcasting it to the world, trying to convince everybody else who's never even met your teacher. Okay, you show respect to your teacher by the way you talk and you act and so on, but you're not you're not trying to win a popularity contest for your teacher, or to boast that my teacher is the best and the this and the that, and you should see the radiant brocade and on the vest, and he has all the hats, the yellow hat and the red hat and the black hat, and and all this kind of stuff. That's really, that is not how we show our trust in our teacher, by going around acting like that. Okay, we show it by practicing. Yeah, we show it by offering service, not by being a groupie around I don't know who the latest rapper is, but, the latest movie star, whoever it is. That's not how we show our faith and devotion. Okay. So, okay. So Kappa's presentation of relying on a spiritual master in the Lamrim Chenmo is very balanced. And if we follow that, less confusion will arise. So here's from Tsongkhapa. Moreover, pay attention to the good qualities that the guru does have, such as ethical conduct, learnedness, and trust and faith, and reflect on those qualities. Once you have become conditioned to this, you may notice that your guru has a small number of faults. However, this does not impede your trust and faith because you are focusing on the good qualities. Okay. So Tsongkhapa, now we're to His Holiness. Tsongkhapa does not say to see our teacher's faults as good qualities or to see all of his actions as perfect. In writing from His Holiness, because you hear that a lot. The guru is the Buddha and everything the guru does is perfect, and you need to see it as perfect, or else, you are looking forward to a bunch of rebirths in the hell realm. It's not what Tsongkhapa says. So we should avoid fanciful ideas, such as thinking, since my mentor is a Buddha, he doesn't get sick, and not call the doctor when he's ill. We live in the conventional world and must act appropriately. If our teacher makes a mistake while reading a text or explaining its meaning, it's fine to respectfully point it out. And I've seen that happen in many teachings. Somebody's giving a lung and they said something or explained something and it was incorrect. And one of the disciples, helped correct it for people. Okay. We should avoid thinking that since the guru is an omniscient Buddha, they should know the way to a distant place. And then we become disillusioned when they ask us for directions. And I put that example in because I have met people who get terribly confused when, they're driving their teacher somewhere and they assume that because the teacher is an omniscient Buddha, they know the directions. And then the teacher has no idea where it is. They usually don't even drive. Yeah. And then, this disciple is just, kind of horrified and disillusioned. I was there one time when, somebody again was our guru is a Buddha, thinking, okay, whatever his opinions are on different subjects, that should also be my opinion because he's a Buddha. Okay, so my teacher likes Tibetan tea. Then if I don't drink Tibetan tea, something's wrong with me, especially if I think it's unhealthy because it has too much salt in it. Yeah. Oh, you're lacking guru devotion. Yeah, because you don't like Tibetan tea and you say it's unhealthy and your guru likes it. One person I saw asked another teacher, if your guru thinks that women are inferior, are you breaking a samaya if you think that women are equal to men? Really, this person was asking with all sincerity, like I have to have every opinion that my teacher has. Your opinions on these kind of issues, that's not why we came to the Dharma. We didn't come to learn what kind of tea or to learn about social relationships. Yeah. One of my precious teachers, I learned so much from him. When we were first studying there, of course, he was raised in Tibet. And he talked about how the world is flat because that's what he learned and what Vasubandhu taught. And when we tried to tell him, no, the world wasn't flat, he was very skeptical, even when one nun brought in a globe, and she had calculated how many pakses below Bodhi, because they say the hell realm is so many pakses, which is a measurement of something with your arm span, was below Bodhi, and that's where the hell realms were. So she calculated it out, and she knew the diameter of the globe. And she went in with a globe and said, here's Bodhi. If we go this number of pakses down, if the world is flat, we're going to come out in America. Yeah, I think it was maybe Los Angeles or something where I came from, or I don't know, maybe not there, but someplace, and still he was very skeptical. It wasn't until he was on a phone call with one of his Geshe buddies who was in India, and it was dark in Europe where he was, and it was light in India. And his Geshe buddy said, it's light out here. And our teacher said, no, it's dark here. And that was what started it. Okay. But, we could get kind of a very colonialist about this and like, oh, those Tibetans, they just, they think the world's flat and they think Tibetan tea is nourishing. And, they didn't have wheels until after the Chinese invasion in 1959. They didn't use wheels. Huh? Like, oh, our culture is so much superior. Yeah, we know so much. And these people think the world's flat. How arrogant can we get? Pretty arrogant, okay? But the point is that if we do that, we are harming ourselves on the path, because then we're not going to appreciate our teacher's knowledge. And we went there to learn the Dharma. We didn't go there to learn astrology or geography, or medicine. We went there to learn the Dharma, and so we can have different ideas. Another one of my very precious teachers, this was a long time ago, before 2016, he thought George Bush was a wonderful president because Bush spoke about Tibet and said the Chinese were, discriminating against the Tibetans. And that was his reason for thinking W was a wonderful president. And almost all of us in the class, were like, oh, God, really? You think this guy was a good president? He started the Iraq War, he did this and that and the other thing. But then, did we come there to learn politics? No, we came there to learn emptiness. He was an exquisite teacher about emptiness, totally exquisite. Yeah. So we have to, be practical here. Okay, so the meditation to see our spiritual mentors as Buddhas is similar to the meditation to imagine the entire earth covered with skeletons. So there's a meditation for developing samadhi and for developing renunciation. You find it in mindfulness of the body, where you imagine you strip down your own skeleton, your own body to the skeletons, and then the bones multiply till the whole universe is filled with skeletons. And it's extremely good for making your mind very calm. Yeah, and many people, some people use that as the object to develop serenity on. Okay, so the seeing our spiritual mentor as a Buddha is similar to that meditation. Both involve imagination that is consciously cultivated and will have a beneficial effect on our minds. Ignorance is not the cause of imagining bones covering the ground. So this is not a wrong consciousness. We intentionally meditate in this way to derive benefit. In this case, the reduction of attachment to our body and to samsaric existence. Similarly, while our spiritual mentors may not be Buddhists, we benefit from thinking of them as such because it makes us listen attentively to the teachings and to take the Dharma instructions seriously. Okay, this is not saying you have to see your teacher this way. This is in the section of explaining why some people do. Okay. If our mind seizes on every opportunity to find imperfections in our spiritual mentors, it is helpful to reflect, why am I here? It is not to notice my teacher's shortcomings, but to learn from their good qualities. This brings us back to the reason we are practicing the Dharma. And that's very, very good advice. Otherwise, our mind just goes way off. Okay. Should we see flaws in our teacher, we can transform them into a learning experience. If our teacher behaves rudely, we think, this is how I look when I'm rude. In this way, we learn from the situation. If we can't give our teachers, our spiritual mentors who have more good qualities than faults, if we can't give them space to be human, it will be difficult to develop tolerance and forgiveness towards sentient beings who have many more faults. So we practice with our teacher, not dwelling on the faults and having an attitude of forgiveness, and basically, seeing these situations as examples of how I look if I misbehave. And in that way, if we can do that with our teacher, then we can do it with ordinary sentient beings later on, which is much more difficult. And we benefit from that. Sometimes the faults we find in our mentors are actually differences in personal preference. Our teacher likes to wake up early. We like to sleep late. Therefore, our teacher is so wrong. No, they're making us lose sleep, and no wonder we can't stay awake during teachings, and then we don't benefit from the teachings. What kind of teacher is this that, makes us wake up early when we haven't slept enough because we were up so late, on our smartphone. Our teacher loves buttered tea. We think it's unhealthy. Our teacher likes to have a long teaching session with no breaks. We prefer shorter ones with a lot of breaks. None of these are ethical faults on the part of the teacher. They're just differences in personal preference. Okay. Observing how we make differences into faults gives us insight into our habitual way of thinking that needs to be corrected. Okay, we should not force ourselves to see our spiritual mentor as the Buddha out of fear of creating destructive karma or doing it bad. So even though there are plenty of teachings about, especially when you're studying highest class Tantra, of all the faults of, just being angry at your teacher for 1 second. And then we get afraid. Then we walk around and we're like, I'm afraid to do anything because I'm going to go to hell. And that doesn't help our mind one single bit. Okay. So we need to understand that this practice was recommended. The practice of seeing the teacher as awakened was recommended by past masters because they benefited from doing that practice. If we try following their advice, we may see a favorable effect. But if this feels uncomfortable, we can turn our minds to topics that inspire us. His Holiness is so practical, isn't he? You know, if that kind of teaching doesn't resonate with you and it makes you afraid, yeah, that doesn't help your practice at all. So leave it aside and focus on what helps you and what inspires you. Okay. Then, how to rely on our spiritual mentors in our actions. Okay. So first, we make material offerings to our spiritual mentors. Because of their qualities, kindness, and the important role they play in our lives, our mentors are potent objects with which we create karma. Okay, let's back up here. The important role they play in our lives. Yeah. If getting out of samsara and becoming a Buddha are your aims in your life, then your spiritual mentor is an extremely important person in your life. Yeah, because your parents don't teach you that. Your parent, our parents loved us, but they didn't teach us how to get out of samsara. Yeah, they taught us how to get into samsara, but not how to get out. Yeah. So if you think, who taught us the Dharma, who encourages our practice? Is it our friends, our ordinary friends? Is it our siblings, our parents? Yeah, our world, our teachers in school or at university? Are these the people who teach us the path and teach us ethical conduct and forgiveness and love and compassion and impartiality and so on? No, it's not them. Who teaches us how to purify our mind? Who teaches us the way to create good karma? It's our spiritual mentors. Yeah, and that's the important role that they play in our life. Yeah, and so when it says because of their qualities, kindness, and the important role they play in our lives, our spiritual mentors are potent objects with which we create karma. Yeah. So when we were studying this section on karma, you might remember that the field of merit, our spiritual mentors, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the karma with which we create with them is very, very strong because of that role that they play in our lives. By making offerings, we create great merit, which we dedicate for the awakening of all beings. From the side of spiritual mentors, the quality or quantity of offerings must not influence the diligence with which they guide disciples. Okay, Geshe Sharawa, he was a 12th century Kadampa Geshe, said that a spiritual mentor who pays attention to the offerings they receive is not a suitable teacher for a disciple aspiring for full awakening. Okay, if you have a spiritual mentor who plays favorites with the disciples who give large offerings, that's a signal of something else. Okay, so that's one way we rely on our teacher through our actions, offering material. Second is we respect and serve our mentors, offering our time and energy to assist in their various projects to benefit others. Offering service also includes tending to their personal needs, such as cooking, cleaning, running errands, and caring for them when they're ill. Okay, and if you have the opportunity to serve your teacher in close contact, you learn a lot because you watch how they behave in all sorts of different situations and relationships. Also, chances are that teacher is going to give you more direct feedback, which you may or may not want. If you want, the feedback definitely helps you, but if you do something unreasonable, the teacher will let you know. Confirming or denying? 100% which? Confirm or deny? Okay. Yeah, because she travels with me and, so there's a lot going on there. And Okay. Third, we offer our practice. Yeah, this is again how we rely on our spiritual master through our actions. We offer our practice, meaning that we practice according to our mentor's instructions. This is the best offering, far excelling the first two, because it involves taming our mind by putting the Dharma instructions into practice. Doing this is the offering that most pleases our spiritual mentors. Okay. Then behavior towards our spiritual mentor. Yeah. So we've talked a bit about this already. Okay. So when we admire and trust somebody, automatically we wish to do actions that are pleasing to them. We don't want to act like an obnoxious brat, you know, if it's somebody that we really respect. Some people appear to be so devoted, humble disciples when they're with their teacher. Yeah. And then in other situations, they're about as rude, as obnoxious as you can get. I won't tell any stories this time, but I know a lot of stories and have witnessed a lot of stories. Okay. Yeah. If a teacher with such, okay, in some cultures, pleasing someone may be a way to curry a powerful person's favor or to avoid their punishment. Look at what's going on in the Republican Party. It's a good example. A student with such preconceptions may seek to please his teacher by offering goods or service with the wish to create merit, but also with the hope to receive recognition or appreciation. And then if the teacher doesn't reciprocate with sufficient appreciation, the disciple feels offended. Why did I work so hard to help that teacher? You know, they didn't even say thank you. Ungrateful snob. Yeah, yeah, you're gonna really learn a lot in Dharma class with that kind of attitude, huh? Who's the ungrateful snob? Excuse me. Okay. So it's very important. If we assist sentient beings and treat them well, that is one aspect of doing what is pleasing to our teacher. Yeah, that came up in Shantideva. Do you remember? Yeah. Who does the Buddha cherish the most? Other sentient beings. When we harm sentient beings, it's like we're harming the Buddha. If we cherish sentient beings and benefit them, you know, then the Buddha is totally delighted. Just like a parent who loves their child is so happy when people are nice to their kid, and not very happy when, you know, people are mean to their kid. Geshe Potua, this 12th century Geshe, said, "We present-day followers do not value teachings at all, but only value the guru's assigning status to us, as demonstrated by each cup of tea that the guru gives us." Yeah, or where we sit, or how much access we have, or whatever. And his conclusion, this is a sign of our deep corruption. Oh, okay, now this part is quite important here. Following our teacher's instructions is a skill we must develop. Sometimes we are resistant to advice that does not please our self-centered thought. Really? Really? I wouldn't have known that. Yeah. Other times we take the advice out of context, thinking that an instruction to an individual student should be generalized to everybody. It is important to differentiate general advice that is applicable to everyone and advice meant for a specific individual. And His Holiness comes to this point several times in different contexts, that some advice the Buddha gave was directed towards a specific individual, given his or her state of mind and what they need to hear and their capabilities of practice. That advice is not meant for everybody. Yeah. Then there's other advice, like what we receive in teachings, most often is meant for everybody to practice. But if we can't discriminate between these two, troubles arise. Okay. So, other times we take advice out of context, thinking that an instruction to an individual student should be generalized to everyone. So the famous thing that we used to hear, but Lama said, so one person had a private interview with Lama, asked him some kind of question. Lama gave an answer, and that person comes out and says, well, Lama said, and give that whole thing without realizing the instruction was given for them alone, or without completely understanding the instruction very well. So when I was living in France, there was one man who was the gardener. He lived at the center. He was a volunteer, and he was a gardener, and he loved making the place beautiful. So Lama came to visit one time, and Lama said, oh, it'd be so nice if there were just flowers everywhere, like if you just could take flower seeds and throw them everywhere, and then the whole center's in the middle of all these beautiful colored flowers. Yeah, beautiful image, isn't it? So he goes to the director of the center, the man that, the gardener, when he heard this, and said, Lama said we should have flowers everywhere. So we need to buy a lot of fertilizer and flower seeds. And, and he gave the center director a whole list of things that we needed to purchase. And the property was huge, and it was going to cost quite a bit of money. Yeah. And the center director was not very happy with this, because they needed the money to do other things that were more important for the center than plant the flowers that would wilt in a few months when the weather turned. Okay. So this was such a good example, of he meant well, but he took Lama's instructions completely out of context in his effort to please Lama. Yeah. And the center director had to say, no, we're not doing that. We have to use our funds wisely. We don't have so much. And, okay. But it was a topic of discussion for a while. Yeah. Okay. If someone, this is a very good example from Ajahn Chah. If someone walking on a narrow path between two precipices is too close to the left side, we call out, go right, go right. But if the person is too near the right side, we shout, go left, go left. Taken out of context, these instructions seem contradictory, although they are not. He's saying go right, then he says go left. You come out of an interview and, he told me go left, then when your friend is going, if I go left, I'm falling down that precipice. Okay. So again, this thing of taking things out, specific advice and generalizing it. Yeah. It's important to respect and follow the advice of the resident teacher in the place where we live, even though that teacher may not be our principal mentor. The resident teacher heads the community, and for the sake of community harmony, as well as for our own spiritual benefit, we should follow her guidance. Yeah. So, when I lived in France, we were trying to start this monastery, and people would come and stay with us, and everybody, but my teacher said, we should wake up at this time. My teacher said we should do this in our morning practice. My teacher said that this should be the object of meditation. My teacher said that this is, and it just created a lot of confusion because that person didn't want to listen to how things were being done at the place where they were living. Okay. I remember one time we had somebody who came here who was very nice and loved to talk about what they did at their own center, and it was very interesting. But after it went on for too long, it was like, are you giving us teachings of what your mentor said, or do you want to stay here and see, how we're doing things and how we practice? Yeah. I don't think we said that to her, but I thought it. I don't know if anybody else thought it. Okay. Then, then about situations where we hold different opinions from our teachers. Now, we may be a vegetarian, but our teacher is not. We may think one political policy would be effective while our teacher favors another. These are issues of personal preference. So we talked about that. Okay. So we're allowed to have our personal preferences about different things. Yeah. And even about views, the view of emptiness. So the example here is, even advanced disciples may have differing views from their teachers on important issues. So this is important issues, not, what you put in your tea and the status of different groups and such. Okay. So Atisha's respect for his spiritual mentor, Sir Lingpa, was incomparable, but he did not follow him in every respect. Sir Lingpa espoused the Chittamatra tenets, while Atisha held the Madhyamaka view. This difference did not impinge on the closeness of their mentor-disciple relationship. Atisha went to Indonesia to learn bodhicitta from Sir Lingpa. Yeah. And they had different views, and Atisha's, from our viewpoint, had the higher view, but that didn't cause friction in their relationship at all. Mipam Rinpoche composed a Dharma text, and one of his disciples from Amdo wrote a critique of it. Somebody questioned the disciple, how can you criticize your guru's work? To which the disciple responded, if something unacceptable is said, one has to counter it. Yeah. Similarly, even though the sutra unraveling the thought is the Buddha's teaching, Nagarjuna and other sages critiqued it, saying its meaning is interpretable, not definitive. Yeah. And then he gave the example of the difference of opinion he had with Trijang Rinpoche, one of his teachers, because Trijang Rinpoche practiced Thubten, and His Holiness felt like that was a practice that should be abandoned. So he went to his teacher, he explained his reasons why he didn't want to practice and why he thought it wasn't good for the Tibetan community. Trijang Rinpoche accepted that. Yeah, and His Holiness said, I still hold him in the highest regard, and my faith in him has not decreased at all, even though Trijang Rinpoche did that practice. Okay, so I better get to your questions. There's some more in here, but I don't want to miss your questions. Okay. so it started out, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh recently reminded people all over the world, death is an inevitable part of conditioned life. Given this reality, how might we best relate to our teachers while they are still alive, which is what we've been talking about last session and this session. And how might we cope with the emotional grief, deep sense of loss, and abandonment that may come with their passing? So I'm going to get into that as time goes on. But what I want to comment, yes, there's emotional grief. Yes, there's a deep sense of loss. But abandonment? Do you think when your teacher dies that they're abandoning you? They're not abandoning you. Okay, so this is where the practice of Guru Yoga is so important, because most often we associate our guru with that physical body and personality that we see as a living being and interact with. That person dies. Yeah. If that is what we have, if that manifestation is where our trust and devotion lies, then when the physical guru dies, we're lost because that person's not there. And I saw very often when one of my teachers died, usually after that, there were people who disrobed or lay people who, floated away because their reliance on the guru was in terms of the personality of their teacher and the personal connection. The teacher knew me, and the personality of the teacher. So they were so lost. Yeah. There's a way of talking about the guru where you talk about the ultimate guru, okay, and the conventional guru. The ultimate guru is the Buddha's omniscient mind, which is the omniscient mind shared, that is common to all Buddhas. That omniscient mind, no beginning, no end. They're not gonna, they don't fall down from enlightenment. They don't abandon us. They don't have faults. And you can't see it with your eyes. Yeah, the Buddha's omniscient mind, we can't see with our eyes. That is where we should really place our trust and devotion. Yeah, because that one, the ultimate guru, does not die, does not abandon us. Okay, that ultimate guru is always present. Okay, the conventional guru is the person that we meet. Yeah, and that person, does things like regular human beings. Yeah, and they eat and they drink and, and all those kinds of things. And they're born and they die. Yeah. But that person is only they're a manifestation of that ultimate guru. So when that person dies, they're not abandoning. The guru is not abandoning us because, we go to the ultimate guru and, and we have access to that all the time. You don't need to have a Zoom call. You don't need, to write an email and get a response. Yeah, you can tune into that in your practice anytime you want. And one way that I did it is, when you've heard a lot of teachings, the teachings are there kind of floating around in your mind. And when you have a problem, I would just kind of do a 911 to my teacher. Yeah, not thinking of this particular person, but of the, the qualities of the teacher, maybe, that manifest in that form, but it's certainly not their body that's going to help me. It's going to be their qualities. So I would do a 911 call in my mind, in my meditation to my teacher, and, how do I handle this situation? And then, usually one of the teachings that I've heard came to mind. And I know, yep, that's what I need to practice at this moment. So yes, there is emotional grief. And my grief when my teachers died, it wasn't really grief like that. It was more astonishment that somebody like me could have met somebody like them and learned from them in the first place. Yeah, it wasn't grief, now they're gone. It was like, how in the world did I have the fortune to meet that person? Unbelievable that somebody like me who grew up in the environment I grew up in and who acted and thought like I did, had the opportunity to meet somebody like that, to listen to teachings, to practice under their guidance. And that was the grief, so to speak. Yeah. So people respond in very different ways when their teachers die. And we don't know exactly what's going on in their mind. I was in Dharamsala in 1981 when Trikung Rinpoche passed away, and he was one of His Holiness's tutors. So he was one of, the teachings of almost all the Tibetans in the whole environment. And he was getting older and sicker. And so people were constantly going down there to pay their last respects to him over a week or 2 or 3. And then one day, he died. So at that time I was studying with Geshe Nawandharge at the library. And Geshe-la was, we had requested him to teach one text. I think it was Arya Deva's, the 400, to teach that privately. It might have been another text, or it might have been that one, to teach it privately to a group of older students. And so we usually had class on however many days, afternoons it was. And the day Trikung Rinpoche died was one of the days that our class would normally happen. And Geshe-la, Trikung Rinpoche was one of Geshe Nawandharge's revered teachers. Yeah. And so Geshe-la did not cancel the class. His guru just died. He did not cancel that class. We went to class. He taught us. He was completely radiant. His teacher just died, and he's giving teachings, and he's radiant in sharing the Dharma with those of us. Okay. I went up to Dharamsala to Shida that evening because they were having a puja for Trikung Rinpoche. And Lama was there, and Lama was weeping during the whole puja. He cried during the whole puja. So I saw one guru respond in this way and one guru respond in that way. Yeah. And both, were masters in their own right. So that is your koan to chew on. Yeah. It was quite meaningful to me to see how different people reacted. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "This body is not me. I am not caught in this body. I am life without boundaries. I have never been born and I have never died." So the person's kind of saying, they say Mahayana Buddhist perspectives can also be intricate and cryptic. Okay. What Thich Nhat Hanh was saying there, I mean, this is the thought of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. Yeah. Not inherently born, not inherently die. Yeah. The body is not who we are. Yeah. The body is the guest house. We chant that every Monday, don't we? And the 37 practices, the body is the guest house. So he says, I am not my body. I'm life without boundaries. I can get born in many different places. Especially, I don't know his level of realization, but if he had control over rebirth, he could do that. Yeah. I've never been born and I have never died. And the mind stream is never born and never dies. It just changes moment to moment. Okay. Furthermore, this is from the text, the people who wrote the questions. Furthermore, our teachers are considered to manifest the aspects of illness and death in dependence upon our own spiritual practice. For instance, months before Lama Yeshe passed away, he told Lama Zopa Rinpoche that he could live for 10, 12 years, but it depends on the karma and hard prayers of the students. So do teachers manifest illness and die just depending on the students? Their next question was, why might our activities influence the lifespan of our teachers? And do long life prayers really work? Okay. So if you sit there and, because often they'll send out, people, please recite Om Mani Padme Hum as many times as you can. Everybody, please recite such and such a sutra as much as you can. Do those things work? Yeah. I have my personal ideas about this. My personal ideas are that these kind of instructions come out in order to get us to practice something. Because we cherish our teachers. And so if we think that chanting something or reciting something will prolong their lives, we'll do that, and then we will benefit from doing that. Personally speaking, that is not my preferred way in my own personal practice. Yeah, I prefer to practice what they've taught me. Yeah, and not count this or count that. Because when I am told to count a certain number, for me, it becomes very mechanical. And then I sit there and, I don't know how many number and I'm counting and I got to tally it up and then turn in my counting number, to the person who's collecting. And that way of doing things doesn't resonate with me, but it resonates with a lot of people. And it helps a lot of people, to remain focused on something that's important. So I think for the people that it helps to remain focused on something important, do those recitations. But for the people who would rather sit down and take more time in their daily practice instead of reciting things, then sit down and do that. Okay, so whatever is personally going to affect your mind. more. Okay. Do long life prayers really work? I don't know. I think what does work is when we practice well and we see the benefits of having our spiritual teachers, and sincerely in the depth of our heart, we request them to live forever. I think that creates the karma on our part to benefit from them. And if they have an opportunity to benefit, and if they have control over their births and deaths, then they'll hang around and to benefit and teach us. But if we don't practice, then what's the use? Yeah, no reason for them to stay around, or no reason for us to meet manifestations of the Buddha if our mind is like a solid rock that doesn't really take anything in. Okay, so again, I don't think it's the thing of saying blah 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 blah. Oh, it's the end of the day, and it's after all of our other dedication prayers. And now we say this long life prayer, and I'm not focusing on the words. I just want to go to bed already. Yeah, but you stay there because everybody else is there going on and on and on. Do you think that is going to prolong your teacher's life? Yeah, that's going to put your teacher to sleep, just like it's putting you to sleep. Yeah, but then we say, but I've got to say so many long life prayers. Oh, God. Okay, but I think if in the seven limb prayer, even the short seven limb prayer, there's one line asking the guru to remain and teach the Dharma. One line about teaching the Dharma, one line about remaining until samsara ends. If we focus when we're reciting the seven limb prayer on those two lines and really feel that in our heart, I think that has an effect, because then we're sincere and there's reasons for Buddhists to be in this world. Okay. But if we're just, messing around in the 8 worldly concerns all day and helping our friends and harming our enemies and sneaking off to the movies and criticizing people and bossing people around and complaining about other people, yeah, then no matter what our teachers teach us, it's not even going in one ear and out the other. We're like the pots with the hole in the bottom, it's going right through. Okay. Or no, actually, it's not even going in and going right through. We're the upside down pot. It's not going in at all. Okay. So you can probably feel some kind of something similar to that, in your own life. Like if you're asked to do something and then, for some people, or give a talk or a demonstration, and then you go and like everybody's kind of blah, then you feel like, what's the use? Okay, I'll talk for 10 minutes and leave. Well, if we're like that regarding the Dharma, then, it's not encouraging our teachers to live long. Okay, but then it goes on. If our teachers pass away, should we consider this a failure from our side? I have heard this before. I can think that this kind of talk is very damaging. Yeah, this is playing on Judeo-Christian guilt. That if your teacher dies, it is your fault. You didn't practice well enough. You're a sinner. You're undeserving. You know, the guru vanished because the students were so obnoxious. It's our fault. We killed the guru. Let me tell you, it sounds funny to say it like this, but I've heard people say that at Dharma centers and think that. And I don't think that's as helpful at all. And I don't think it's true either. Yeah. Teachers are born with bodies. Now, not all of them, as we just read, His Holiness said, are enlightened beings who can control the death process and the rebirth process. Not all of them are manifestations of the Buddha. Some are ordinary beings with ordinary bodies. Ordinary bodies die. It is not anybody else's fault. Yeah, unless they're the ones who, you know, in a war situation, killed somebody. But no, we shouldn't sit there, feel guilty. You know, oh, mea culpa, I killed my guru because I didn't practice well enough. I only recited 5,000 long life prayers instead of 6,000. Is that kind of attitude going to create the karma to meet a spiritual mentor in the future? Or are you just throwing yourself into some emotional state, you know, that complies with all the guilt you grew up with? Okay. So the answer to that question was no. Our favorite answer, you know, no, you should not consider this a failure on our part. Okay. And how might we view our teacher's passing in relation to a timeless existence without boundaries, which is quite different from the reality that appears to us? If you think about what the ultimate guru is, then that will answer this question. You know, the ultimate, because we shouldn't, in our life, we are so glued to sense objects, you know, our seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching all day. We focus on external objects. Yeah. External objects are impermanent. They come and they go. Yeah. So this is not, we in our lives in general, we should not focus so much on external objects. We should focus more on what's happening in our own mind and learn and try and cultivate the qualities of a Buddha's mind. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Okay, so how do you qualify, how do you develop the qualities of a Buddha's mind? You apologize when you've done something wrong. You forgive people who have made mistakes. You work to include everybody in a group. You speak the truth in a kind and appropriate way. Yeah. These things don't have to be so esoteric that we're floating around in, you know, the guru's omniscient mind. You know, we start where we're at and we do things that we're capable of doing. And then slowly, you know, the actions of our body, speech, and mind are going to improve. They can't help but improve. Yeah. But we got to start where we're at without thinking, well, that's just a baby practice. They taught me that in Sunday school. And then since that's just, you know, apologizing to people when I hurt their feelings. That's a baby practice. So I am so spiritually advanced, I don't need to apologize to anybody. As Lama would say, check up, dear. Yeah. We shouldn't put down the quote, quote, simple advice, because it's actually quite difficult when we have strong self-grasping and self-centeredness. Okay, so those were the questions in the sheet. We can go over time a little bit if it's okay with the people there. So if you have questions, maybe we can do, a couple of questions.
Thank you, Venerable. Anyone with questions, you're welcome to raise your hand or type it in the chat area.
Anybody here? Nothing? Really? Everything was so clear? Yeah.
So, yes, Anna?
Thank you, Venerable and Jennifer. I think just to make sure that I'm on track, I'd love to make sure by asking this question to create the right karma to meet a spiritual mentor, to make sure of that. What would be your advice?
What is the question again? What kind of karma to create to be a spiritual mentor?
No, sorry. Things for me to bear in mind, the type of karma I need to create to ensure I meet with a spiritual mentor.
Okay, to ensure you meet with a spiritual mentor. First of all, having a good relationship with your present spiritual mentor, creating that good relationship, as we've talked last week and this week, that's one factor. And I think making very strong aspirations and prayers, not just to meet with a spiritual mentor, to meet with a fully qualified Mahayana and Vajrayana spiritual mentor, to recognize their qualities, to follow their instructions, and to develop a beneficial relationship with them. So we should aspire and pray for all of that together. Just meeting a spiritual mentor, we could meet Donald Duck. Yeah, and I'm sure for all the ducks in the world, he's a great spiritual mentor. Yeah, quack, quack. Yeah, but we want, a fully qualified Mahayana and Vajrayana one. Okay.
And Venerable Sandra asked a question in the chat area. What is the conclusion of saying goodbye to our teacher?
I don't understand. You mean on a personal level when your teacher is dying? How to say goodbye, or how to end this talk, or?
Maybe Sandra, I see you're unmuted if you'd like to share more.
Now, the whole topic of the title of the talk is saying goodbye to your spiritual teacher. So what's your conclusion about saying goodbye to your spiritual teacher? I think you covered it, but
it's the whole two talks. It's developing.
Well, I know, but like what's the ending? How do you conclude that?
You say goodbye, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not clear on the question.
I think maybe you answered it when you said you had two teachers, one who radiated and the other who cried, was the answer to the question. what I thought the topic was about, but I know what you mean. It's the end now, so I was just looking
Yeah.
for the conclusion.
Yeah, everybody is going to have their own way of one teacher crying, one teacher teaching and radiating joy. Those are external appearances. Yeah, what was going on in their mind was what is most important. That I can only guess at. And I don't know that what was going on in their minds was different just because their physical behavior was different. Yeah, I think, what goes on in your mind is just, there was there was a story that I didn't read about Drum Dompa, Atisha's disciple. When he was dying, he put his head in the lap of Geshe Potawa, who was one of his students. And Geshe Potawa, was crying because Drum was dying and Drum's his teacher. And one of the teardrops hit Drum Dompa. And he looked up and he said, why are you crying? And Geshe Potawa said, well, when you were alive, I could always go to you and ask Dharma questions and get things clarified and ask for your guidance. And now you're not going to be here anymore. And Drum Dompa said, rely on the Tripitaka, rely on the Buddhist scriptures, because when I'm not here, they will be your teacher. And I know one of my teachers told me that. Actually, I didn't even ask, but he mentioned that. And, if you've studied a lot, then taking the scriptures as your teacher is like hearing your teacher give you the teaching. Yeah, because you read the words of the scripture, but you remember what your teacher taught you about it. Okay, but to have that after they die means while they're dying, or while they're living, to attend teachings and to really study and practice those teachings. And so when your teacher dies, you continue your practice. You don't stop your practice because your teacher isn't there. In fact, for me, the two things really happened after my teachers died. One was, it's like, okay, I got to practice now. Yeah. It's like, instead of just listening to teachings and, it's nice and I love listening to teachings, it's now I got to practice. And second thing was, my teachers aren't here. I've got to step up to the plate and serve the Buddha Dharma and serve sentient beings. So I don't know anything near what my teachers know, but if I can share one little bit that helps with somebody else, instead of just, going back into a shell and saying, oh, I'm unqualified, I don't need anything. I've got to do what I can to help. Okay. Because one time with Lama, in the Kupan courses, they have a Western student. So they had asked me to be the Western student who leads the meditations, and the Lamas give the teachings, and then the Western students do Q&A and lead meditations. And I was still a baby. I hadn't been ordained very long, and they were going to make me the Western, teacher, meditation instructor. And I went to Lama Yeshe and I said, Lama, I don't know anything. I can't do that. He looked at me and he said, you're selfish. Okay, so when Lama died, I didn't have any choice, and it was clear after he made that remark, it was clear what I had to do. It took me years and years and years to kind of feel like I could do it. But, you know, your life does not collapse when your teacher dies. You need to embody, you know, as best you can, even though your own bodhicitta is completely artificial, you need to embody that as much as you can, you know, and the teacher's wisdom. Now, that doesn't mean we go out and make ourselves into great gurus, but it means that instead of backing away and doing like I did, you know, Lama, I don't know anything, I can't do that, maybe I'm just poor little me. You know, he wasn't gonna let me get away with that. Yeah. Is that enough of a conclusion for you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. All of the above, all the thing was worked. It gave us a lot of information.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think we met before, but you told me one time we haven't, but that's another story.
Oh, okay. Okay, any other questions or?
There was a
comments?
question that came up via private message. And the
Uh-huh.
question is, what are ways to honor the spiritual teacher when sadness arises? And also just a request for the title of the book you're reading from.
Okay, well, the title of the book is The Foundation of Buddhist Practice. So this is volume 2 in this series called The Library of Wisdom and Compassion by His Holiness that I helped with. Okay, and then what was the first question that I?
Yes, the question was worded, how do you honor, what are ways to honor the spiritual teacher when sadness arises?
Okay, what kind of sadness? Sadness because they died, sadness because you're facing depression, sadness because you aren't getting along with them. There's so many kinds of sadness.
Yes, if the writer, I see the facial expressions, would like to unmute, that's great. Otherwise, I'm happy to just basically, yes, for you, what you were saying, Venerable, in terms of sadness when they depart and the grief.
Okay. I personally think bodhicitta is the best antidepressant you can find. Yeah. And when you're sad, if you meditate on bodhicitta, then, you know, and you have this far-reaching goal, and you have some kind of itty-bitty confidence that, you know, here's a path that works, that many people have followed and gotten there, you know, and where I can really make my life beneficial for all sentient beings, you know, then what's there to be sad about? Yeah, sadness comes, sadness goes, you know. When we dwell on our sadness, when we do single-pointed meditation on sadness, yeah, we've all done that in the past, haven't we? Yeah. So that doesn't get us anywhere. Yeah. So think about the benefits of bodhicitta, chapter 1 of Shantideva's book, and think that you have this potential, and then go ahead. Yeah. And it's going to take a long time, but that's okay. What else are you going to do in samsara? Yeah. If you don't develop bodhicitta, what are you going to do in samsara? You know, I mean, how many boyfriends and girlfriends can you have? How much dope can you smoke? How much alcohol can you drink? How many movies can you watch? How many smartphones can you go through? You know, and how many red sports cars to deny that you're getting old do you have to own? Yeah, I mean, none of that works to alleviate the sadness. It's true, isn't it? Because we've all done that. We've done that so many times. You know, we've eaten, you know, what's our comfort food? Chocolate, and hot chai. That's my comfort food. You may not like it. You have your own comfort food, but you take your comfort food. I eat enough chocolate and then I don't feel well. I drink a lot of hot chai, and then all I have to do is go pee-pee. So it doesn't, in the end, solve the problem. But bodhicitta helps. Yeah, it helps. Okay. You had a question? No? Okay. Okay, anything else?
I don't see any questions.
Then no more questions, Jennifer? So, okay, so we'll dedicate.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Come visit us up at Travasti Abbey. Yeah. Be nice to meet you in person. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.